Katie wanted me to talk about rocks. I told her there aren't any naturally occurring rocks at Lake Merritt. Everything around the lake is either sand or gravel or mud. So she had Rob come out and record me as I visited 4 of my favorite landscaping boulders in Lakeside Park. And we're going to see the first one now. And when we come back, I'll introduce 2 geological features at the lake that are related to the ice ages. I'm going to be talking in my Zoom talk about the park itself. Now, the park has no rocks of its own. There are no rocks, natural rocks in Lakeside Park. But the people who put the park together brought in a lot of rocks. They're doing jobs like they're guarding the crossings. They're keeping cars out of places they shouldn't be. But one of the nice things about the rocks they brought in is that they're from Oakland. And I'm going to start with this one, with these ones that are guarding the entrance, the main entrance sign when you drive into the park. This is some of Oakland's oldest rock. It is about 160 million years old, and it started out in the middle of the ocean as a volcanic eruption. It was a great big pile of volcanic ash and lava, and it sat there in the middle of the ocean. Of course, when you know about plate tectonics, you know that the ocean floors are moving around the Earth, and they bump in, they carry things toward the continents. And that's what happened to this. It was a pile of lava and ash in the middle of the ocean. It was down near the equator. And it moved north and east and bumped into North America sometime around 100 million years ago. And along the way, it started out black, but it got cooked in hydrothermal springs. It got fresh lava injected into it, and the seawater reacted with it, and that's why it turned white. And it erased a lot of the signs that you would look for in a volcanic rock. And it also replaced a lot of the minerals. In fact, this is all over the Leona Heights area. There's also a big body of it above Route 24 in the Hiller Highlands area. It's a great big road cut. You can see it there. And if you poke around, you'll find parts of it that have blue lumps in it, blue-green lumps. And I love that stuff. This is a mineral called celadonite, but there isn't any in this. But that's the, like I say, it's the oldest rock in Oakland. And once you get to know it, that sort of light color and that bright orange brown stain on it, you'll see it all over the place.
So here we are by the entrance to Fairyland with Andrew, and we're going to take a look at another boulder. Andrew, this is a beautiful boulder you have dusted off. What are we seeing here?
We're looking at one of Oakland's most special rocks. And most colorful. It is a deposit that came from up near Holy Names College. And the Ohlone tribes used to look for this rock, and they would grind it into powder and make body paint out of it. They'd mix it with fat and use it to decorate themselves, which was a very important part of their culture. And they had this, and that pigment is called ochre, a mineral pigment. And so what they had, in fact, was an ochre mine up there in the hills. And because this deposit was the very best of its kind in the whole Bay Area, they would trade it to the other tribes for things that they couldn't get in Oakland. Now, there's not much you can't get in Oakland, but a few of the things you can't get are good flint or obsidian to make arrowheads with. That stuff comes up from the Napa Valley where the fresh lava flows are. So they would trade with the tribes to the north, or the tribes along the coast who would collect abalone shells and carve them into beads and decorative objects. So they would trade this ochre body paint with for things that were valuable because they were good tools like arrowheads and knives, or objects that were beautiful, things that they could make jewelry out of and weave into their ceremonial costumes and so on. So this was a very important cultural resource for the whole Bay Area. Now, ochre forms, you'll notice that the color is very similar to the brown stain we saw on the lava rock. That's because this comes from the same body of rock. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the top of that lava rock would dissolve in the rain, and it would leave behind these red oxide minerals. And it built up over that time into a large, thick deposit, which the Ohlone had, they had been mining it for thousands of years. Unfortunately, there's almost none of it left, because around 1900, a man from Alameda named Fritz Bamer, who owned the land, had it mined and manufactured into red paint. And that's where it all went. But I'm glad they have pieces of it here. You can see other chunks of it up at the Lincoln Center shopping center, and that part of the hills. Another one of my favorite kinds of rock in Oakland is this beautiful blue-green material. This is serpentine rock. There's a large body of it up above Redwood Road, north of Redwood Road, along the spine of the hills. And on the far side of the hills is the Serpentine Prairie Preserve. And it's full of this stuff. It's got glossy things, and it's got these cracks. Serpentine, or serpentinite if you're a geologist, is California's official state rock. And we're lucky to have a nice piece of it in Oakland. We have lots of different kinds of rock in Oakland. In fact, I have estimated that Oakland has more different kinds of rock in it than any city in America. So I think that, in addition to our human diversity, we have lithodiversity in Oakland. Now, the story of serpentinite, or serpentine, is that this is material from deep under the bottom of the ocean. It's miles deep down in the Earth's mantle beneath the crust. And this forms when cracks in the crust allow seawater to penetrate those rocks. And because they're at hundreds of degrees, they react with the rock and turn it into this set of green minerals, serpentine minerals. And that's the story of how it forms. Now, how something from beneath the bottom of the ocean ends up in the Oakland Hills is a very deep story. It's not one I'm going to tell today. The story of Lake Merritt is very, very recent in geologic history. The story of the rocks in our hills is very, very old. They go back 150, 160 million years. That's a whole different story. I'm going to show you one more rock, which is my very favorite in all of Lakeside Park, next.
So here we are at the Rotary Nature Center with Andrew Alden, and I'm going to take a look at a boulder many of us have passed by without knowing its history. And so we're really privileged and excited to hear from Andrew.
This is my favorite rock in Lakeside Park. This is a beautiful boulder of blue schist. It is blue. Not all blue schist is blue, but and so what does schist mean? Schist is a rock any rock that has been squeezed and altered until it forms lots of mica minerals. It's a kind of a flaky rock. Any rock like this that you find can be called a schist. This is a blue schist, and it's shiny. We'll see some close-ups of it. It's really worth looking at. Especially come here in the rain sometime when it's wet and have a look at it. But this is what happens when you take an ordinary piece of mudstone and you push it down into the earth 20 or 30 kilometers deep. So this is like 15, 20 miles. And under the high pressure, all the clay minerals and quartz sand turn into blue glaucophane, shiny phengite, and white lawsonite. These are minerals they don't tell you about even in geology class because they're so rare. But you see them in this high pressure, low temperature blue schist. And you'll find pieces of this in Oakland, up in the headwaters of Peralta Creek. I've found boulders of this exact same material in the stream beds up there in Peralta Creek. And there's another body of it in Mills College. So it's a mystery. It's the same kind of mystery we talked about with the serpentine. How do you get rocks from such remote and difficult places? How do you get them down there and back up again and shoved up in Oakland's hills? And it's an intricate story, and it's completely different from the story of Lake Merritt. But I'm so happy that the city has brought these rocks from all over Oakland. Who knows where they came from? Maybe the Public Works Department harvested them from construction projects or something. But they saw fit. They looked at them and said, these are really interesting. Let's put them in the park. And I'm happy to tell you about to alert you to their presence and urge you to visit them every once in a while and read about them on my blog. And that's, for the rest of the story, I'll go back to my PowerPoint talk. But I'm happy to Katie for having the crew out here so I can show you some of these in person. So thanks for coming along with me, and come visit the park.